This is Clay with Clay's AC and Auto Repair and Clay Motion here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm sure if you own a Sky Slider, you're going to find this video helpful, so like it. But most of all, subscribe, click the notification box, and share my videos. Remember, you can't break what's already broken, and you can't fix it if you don't try. So if any other man can do it, you can do it too. So if you own a Jeep Liberty with the Sky Slider option, you know how awesome they are, but you also know how terrible they are too. They leak water, they leak air, blah blah blah. Well, we're not going to get into the water leaking problem because I really don't have that problem with mine. You just need to look for the duct work and clean out the drains, and that'll stop your leaking problem unless you have a chip seal. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will talk to you about the seal and show you what they shouldn't be, or what they should be. This is the seal that keeps the water out, right here. Okay, this portion right here, sorry. My finger's looking through the camera. If that seal is chipped or cracked, yes, you need to fix it. I don't know that you need to take duct tape and tape it all off or take it all out and act all crazy. And another suggestion is you could remove that and have the glass place cut you a new piece of glass. But what we're really here for today is your air leaking problem. If your air leaks out of the front of it and you hear this constant whistling noise, you're gonna be surprised you never thought of this and why I had to do this for you. This is approximately, and I don't know the exact measurement, we'll get into it now, approximately 45 inches across there. Well, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these wind deflectors, specifically these AVS 77005 wind deflectors, and I've got two of them. You probably already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it in half. We're going to plastic weld them together, and the reason that I chose these particular ones is because of the density of the plastic. So this is going to be approximately 45 inches across. What we don't want is a lot of sagging in there. We might have to engineer a solution for that. So essentially we're going to cut them in half, paint them once we plastic weld them, because we don't want people to see the cut. We don't want it to look like crap. We want it to look factory. Put the two together, make the width that we need, because I couldn't find one that was the correct width for this vehicle. And we may even take some metal and put it in there to strengthen it. But we'll get into that through the video. I'm not quite certain, obviously. I'm the first one to ever do this. And this is I think it should be pretty simple. In my brain, it's fairly simple, but I'll show you what I'm thinking. Okay, so I took a measurement from this edge, the uppermost square edge, all the way over to this edge, and I came out with 108.5 millimeters. So, you know, basically 108.5, divided that in half, came up with 54.25. So I made my mark there. I don't think that our mark being exactly center matters all that much, because we have buffer space on the top of our vehicle. I think it's more important to cut this straight. Your straight cuts are going to be more important than the actual length of it. I mean, because you do probably have a ½ inch, give or take, to an inch, give or take, on there, you know, so not a big deal. But I measured that out, and it came out with about 54.25. or 42 3/4 is the reason that I'm not using standard for this. So 42 3/4, which would give you approximately 21 5/8, you know, 21 5/8 or something like that. You know, or maybe a little bit less, 9/16, you know, 7/16, somewhere in between there. That might even be wrong. Okay, so now what me and Jeff have done is we've decided that the optimal placement for it is right here. We've checked it forward and backwards, made sure it didn't interfere. Jeff threw out the tape measure. We put the end of the, can you throw me that into that tape measure real quick, Jeff, so I can show them where we put our tape. So we put our tape, butted it up against the outer edge of there, and then when we measured it just like that with the tape measure right on the outside of there. And what were your measurements, Jeff?
44 3/4 inches.
44 3/4 inches, and what was the metric measurement?
I'm getting that conversion right now.
So that's approximately 100 14.8 millimeters across, or 44 3/4 inches. So that measurement is 44 3/4 total length once we've made our cut and we put our insert in there, or 114.8 millimeters long total once we make the cut. Now, if Jeff butted it up against there, I don't know if I like that, but this is the first time we've ever done it. And the reason I don't like it is because it doesn't give me any room for mistakes, for it to be too narrow or too wide. So that's up to you, what you think you can do. You could obviously go out a couple millimeters or, you know, a 1/4 inch wider, and then you'll be able to do it. Now, we're going to use a scroll saw to cut this, but you could use a die grinder wheel. You just make sure that you want to make your cut straight. And you want your cut to be on the same part on your other piece that you're going to use because of the shape of this. So, but we're going to use a scroll saw to cut that because we know we can cut it easily and it'll be real straight and real square. All right, we're already going through engineer changes. Explain that to us, Jeff.
Okay, so we only have to make one graft. We've got the total width we need is 44 3/4 inch long. Now we need to divide that by 2, comes up with 22.375 inches. Now we take 2 of these and cut 2 equal lengths at 22.375, graft them together, and then you will now have one solid piece that's 44 3/4 inch. So instead of having 2 graft lines, you'll only have one right down the middle.
So he's saying on one piece you would cut it to the left, and then on the other piece you would cut it to the right when you make your measurement from here to wherever, you know, what do you say, 22.5 inches out?
22.375.
Yeah, 22 3/4 inches out.
That'd be 750.
Whatever. Anyways, I think you're getting what we're saying. Just make sure that your links are the opposite, cut from the opposite piece. So one piece you're going to cut from the right side that far in, and then the other piece you're going to cut from the left side that far in. And then what'll happen is it'll still give it that nice even contour. My thought was to cut a piece here and here out of the other part that I have and have 2 section grafted, but he's actually right. Having one would be better than making 2, so then you don't have 3 separate joints or 3 separate pieces. You only have 2 separate pieces. So we're figuring this out as we go along, but it should work. Okay, so depending on what side you're cutting, from our situation we went 22.5 inches into the center. Now, like I said, and I can't iterate this enough, you're going to go 22.5 inches from the opposite side when you make your next cut, so you only have one joint. You probably should watch this whole video because there's going to be a lot of information in here, and we're going to figure out what we're doing wrong as we do it. But I can only make the video once, so that's why I'm making it as I figure it out. Now we're going to take a square and make sure our line is straight prior to cutting it. I'm not much of a carpenter, and I don't know if Jeff is, but this is carpentry work to me, squaring things up. Jeff has a little bit more attention abilities than I do, which is kind of weird to say because at times he does not.
My grandpa was a carpenter, so
he likes this stuff. Because it's see-through, he can make the line from this side as well. I don't know if that'll be helpful, but it depends on how it fits in the scroll saw.
Exactly, so it gives you more options.
Just double checking our measurements.
I made it a little longer than 22.5, but that's all right.
Okay, so now, because this is the scrap side that we're getting rid of, and this is the side that we're keeping, we're measuring out 22.5 inches from this corner to the center. Now notice I changed my measurements. That gives us 45 inches. We figured once we started going that that'd give us a little bit of a buffer room so this thing could still be centered on the Jeep when we put it on there. But that should be helpful for you. So now I'm going to measure this out 22.5 inches to center. Okay, because I'm carpentry challenged, which Jeff's getting a kick out of, I flipped it over and I took a measurement from here to here with my tape measure. I am terribly carpentry challenged, Jeff. And what I did, so I made my mark there at 22.5 inches. And then I took my ruler or my square and I lined it up right there, and I used the hash marks and made sure that they were square on each side. So the hash mark was here and then the hash mark was here, and that's how I knew it was square, because this thing's a weird shape and it's hard to get square lines, and it's so important that the line is straight so it don't look goofy. The line being straight is probably more important than the actual width. I mean, the width is important to about 1/2 inch, give or take, but the line being straight, and when you cut it being straight, is important. Now I'm using the masking tape for 2 reasons. One, to tape off the area so I can see the line, but also to help it prevent from cracking or splitting while I cut it. This is probably really important to you. If you're not using a scroll saw like me, you're probably going to want to use like 3 pieces of tape and make sure they're on there and they're not sticking up. Like that piece of tape right there is sticking up and not affixed down there. I just want to point out, if you use a builder's square to actually do this, the inside edge to the outside edge is 22.5 inches, so that works out pretty sweet, and you can double check your work. I double checked my work like, I don't know, 15 times, because we already know about my carpentry skills. So now we've got our 2 pieces cut, and we can fix them together, and they're pretty much flush. What we're going to do next is we're going to cut off a piece of our extra from one of our scrap parts. We're going to cut off a piece of our extra, and we're going to put it in there as a kind of as a to help join it together and keep it flat. We're going to end up cutting off the base of it so it doesn't stick out further from the bottom. So we'll probably end up cutting the strip off here, and then we'll glue that piece in between the 2 pieces, and that'll give it a lot more structural integrity. And because we're going to paint this, you won't notice the joint marks that we make, and it'll turn out to be real solid. Doesn't really matter how much of this you cut. Obviously I got about 3 inches there. And you're not going to see it because it's going to be underneath the lip. You might see it when the roof's open, but we'll paint both sides of it so it looks appropriate. Okay, so now we have our full piece cut, and we have our joiner piece cut as well. So we're going to end up gluing the 2 sides together, and if we got any of this, say you didn't cut your line straight, we just file that down, and that's why we have the little bit of extra that we have. We're going to take your tape off of there, and you can tell that I pretty much took a pretty good hunk off of this, so it would lay down there properly, and we wouldn't have this interfering with our mount right there. Okay, so we figured out earlier in the program that I'm carpentry challenged, and I've got the 2 pieces cut. Can't say they're the straightest lines ever, but there is a difference between the 2 different parts. One's got a little thicker edge on it than the other one, so we're going to end up sanding that down to make it look proper. But right now we're going to take out the plastic bonder, and I'm using JB Weld. It's got a 15-minute set time, a 30-minute cure time. Says it's like 3,700 PSI. We're going to use that to fill up our gap. I'm not going to show you that because it's embarrassing, but if you can see it through there, good for you. We're going to mix this up. This is 2-part epoxy, so you're going to take a piece of probably like cardboard like I got there off of the box top. I'm going to use a toothpick to mix it up, and then I'm going to probably use a rubber glove to spread it so I can spread it evenly and stuff. You got to remember, this is going to look terrible until we paint it. Hopefully once I paint it, it doesn't look so bad, because then we'll be able to sand everything down and make it look appropriate. But we'll see how that turns out. Now, once I did that, I obviously set a piece of wood down on there to give it some pressure. What I'm more concerned about is that this edge lines up. This edge I can make straight, but this is going to be much more difficult to make straight, so this actually fits together very nicely. If they wouldn't have machined these 2 different, even though they're supposed to be the exact same part, 2 different edge lips, we probably wouldn't have that right there, even with my carpentry skills being the way they are. But now we're going to let that sit for like 30 minutes, and then we're going to fill the front of it with the plastic bond so we can seal it out, and probably within about 2 hours we can probably actually start doing our painting and stuff like that, make it look good. Okay, so we waited about a half an hour to 45 minutes. We came back and we checked our stuff. It's pretty tight. So we're gonna go ahead and remove our boards. I'm gonna see what we got, see if hopefully it doesn't break in half. And this is the first time I've looked at it. Now I'm gonna take and fill this in. Because this is a sandable product, I'm gonna fill that in and try to use it as a little bit of a filler for this mark right here and make that edge. We're gonna have to mix up more product to be able to do that. But I'd say it's okay-ish. I think setting it overnight is probably going to be the best bet, but we'll see. Now, to get my shape just a little bit better, I'm setting it in the sun and I'm letting it dry on the top of here. Probably could have done that at the first step with the thing, and then it would have, but I didn't want to make too big a crown in the center, so I did it with the glue that I just applied between the two halves on the other side. And we're gonna have to clean it off and paint it so it's just sitting up there, but I put it in the position. I think it'll make it have a little bit more curvature to it that way. Okay, so now we've got our center section all put together, smoothed it out a bit. I'm gonna go ahead and paint it. I ain't super proud of this, but I want to get it on the car, and I'm not a body guy, so we're gonna go ahead and just use some flat black, paint it down, see what it looks like, see if we got to put any body filler on it. I know you're supposed to probably put the body filler on before you put the paint on, but I'm not a body filler type guy, so we'll go ahead and try this out and see what it looks like at the end. Now when I paint, I'm not going to over paint. I'm just going to put a couple different coats on it, and you want to go solid, left to right, left to right. Don't go like this. If you're going to paint one way, at least just keep painting that direction if you do start painting like this. But I probably got about 10 passes into that, and this is just the first coat, and it's covering pretty well. So it looked a little bit shiny. As you can tell throughout the video, it's changed a little bit there. It's getting a little bit flatter and flatter, and that's kind of what we want. Looks like we're going to still be able to see that seam right there. So maybe some of you guys that are a little bit more skilled than me can actually fill that in with some body filler. I might ask the body guy to do it for me and see what happens. Okay, so now we got our panel all bonded up. Now we're going to sand this down, and then we'll be able to apply our coat of paint on there, and hopefully it looks good. So we got it all bonded up, kind of flat. It's not perfect, but the first ones never are. So we're gonna go ahead and clean it off, and we're gonna put a like a bed liner coat on the top of it, because it's gonna be black and it's not gonna be see-through. Probably not go with the flat black. So we obviously primed it first, and we're using truck bed liner paint to kind of give it a little bit better, taller finish, because my body work skills are not the greatest. And I've been working on this for so long, just in my spare time, for what seems like a month now. And I'm tired of hearing that noise in my Jeep. That's why we're not too critical on it, and I'm not even sure how well it's going to work or how long it's going to last, but pretty confident that it's going to stay on there. It's not going to come off, that's for sure. Okay, now that you've got your sweet visor made, hopefully yours turned out a little bit better than mine. I'm sure in the future I'll be able to make it much better, but I do like the texture how it came out with the bed liner. So we're going to stick that puppy on there. We took some soap and water, cleaned that up, and hope the video was helpful. If it was, please subscribe. Remember, you can't break what's already broken. You can only make it better. Don't repair it. Don't replace it. Just repair it. God bless you guys. Subscribe. Click the notification. Thanks much.